Welcome to Fan Fave with Katrina. Fan Fave with Katrina. It's time to talk pop culture.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Katrina, and this is Fan Fave, the ultimate pop culture podcast for fans of all forms of entertainment. If you love music, television, film, theater, or anything in between, you're in the right place. We are so back. We didn't have an episode last week because I caught something. Not COVID, but I was in bed sick and I basically lost my voice and it was really bad for a few days. So I just took a break from the podcast and my little reels on social media. I'm low-key still a little bit sick, but I don't think I have anything anymore because it's been like 2 weeks now. But I think it has translated into like springtime allergies, which historically I have always had the worst allergies. So it might just have been that the whole time because I was not taking my medicine like I was supposed to, which is so silly because I work in journalism and I literally wrote a story where I was like, yeah, you should start taking your allergy medicine like a month or two early before you start having symptoms. And then I proceeded to not do that at all myself. But anyways, I am back. I'm here with some tea, but if my voice still sounds a little funny, that is why. We are here today, though, and we have a lot to talk about. We have a new Beyoncé album, one that's heavily inspired by the sounds of country music. Now, when the superstar, she began her rollout of this album earlier this year, she was met with a lot of backlash as it relates to her being able to perform country music. And I think a good amount of it had to do with people taking issue to a Black woman entering a genre that people of color have simply historically not been the frontrunners in. And as a country music fan myself, I talked about it a little bit on the podcast earlier when the first two singles came out. But with all this talk, I just realized that there really is so much Black history within the country music space that I just didn't even know about myself. So I did a lot of research into this history of Black artists in the country music scene. And today I'm going to share what I learned with you all. Because this episode is inspired by the release of Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter, I'll also end by sharing some of my first thoughts about this project. But first, it's time for a pop recap. Let's talk everything trending in the entertainment world that I have not been able to stop talking about since the last time I spoke to you all. This week's pop recap may be a little bit longer than usual because actually this whole episode may be a little longer than usual. I like to keep episodes closer to like 45 minutes in general. Let me know if y'all like that. But if today is longer, you're welcome. It's my gift for missing last week. But also, I just have things in here from the past like 2 weeks because I was prepping for last week's pop recap and then I got sick. So yeah, there's a bit of news from 2 weeks ago as well. Let's just get into it. Starting off in the film industry, as we usually do, after the success of Dune 2 and Wonka, Timothee Chalamet has signed into a multi-year first-look feature film deal with Warner Brothers. So he will be collaborating with the studio a whole lot more on future projects as both an actor and a producer. You guys, Timothee is just such a star. I've been following him for a while since the Lady Bird days. Like, I literally remember talking about him like in drama club senior year with my friends, and now he's like so huge now. And I mean, he's just so good in everything that he's in. So I'm really excited about this. A lot of people always talk about how this old idea of Hollywood A-list movie stars is kind of dead and that there aren't really big name actors that can shut things down anymore or get people in a theater. But I have to say that Timothee Chalamet has got to be in the new age of this new generation of movie stars. Like, you really cannot deny it at this point. We also got some new interesting movie trailers that I want to talk about. First, we have Jerry Seinfeld's Pop-Tarts movie, Unfrosted. I'm sorry, you guys. In a world of all these company biopic movies, this one is just so goofy that I am here for it. And I mean, the cast is also really good. I mean, it's super stacked with comedians. Jerry Seinfeld, he does star, but it also has everyone from Melissa McCarthy to John Hamm and Cedric the Entertainer. For my SNL people, it's got Beck Bennett and Kyle Mooney. It's got Bobby Moynihan and Mikey Day. I mean, I could go on and on about this cast. The movie is going to Netflix on May 3rd, and it follows Kellogg's and Post cereal as they compete to see if if they can produce a revolutionary breakfast pastry in 1963 Michigan. Except I think it's more of a joke, like a mockery of these types of movies. I know Seinfeld said that he expanded this from a stand-up bit that he did, but yeah, the whole movie just looks like a ton of fun. The other new movie trailer that I want to talk about is this movie Fly Me to the Moon. It stars Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum, and it's a rom-com set in the 1960s. Johansson, she plays a marketing executive hired by NASA to film a fake moon landing in case the real mission fails. The trailer actually looks pretty good, you guys, and it's a unique concept, although slightly dangerous considering all the conspiracy theorists out there that truly believe that the moon landing was fake. But yeah, it looks like fun. It releases in theaters on July 12th. Some new releases in films since we last spoke include Alex Edelman's Just For Us comedy special on Max. For those who've been following him for a while, he actually did this as a stint on Broadway, and so now it's on streaming for everybody to see on Max. Dev Patel, he released Monkey Man, which I've heard so many good things about. I've got to check that one out. The week before last, we also had the new Godzilla vs. Kong movie come out and Steve Martin's documentary on Apple TV. You guys, I have a lot of catching up to do. Looking ahead, the Kirsten Dunst-led dystopian thriller Civil War premieres in theaters on Friday, April 12th. Moving on to theater, Ariana DeBose will be hosting the Tonys this year. This is her third time hosting, and I'm super excited about it because she always does such a great job. Even after last year when she had no script and she did like the all dancing opening number without even speaking. Just so good. She's super talented. Even though people joke on her, I think she's great. And the Tonys will be on June 16th this year, so get ready. In other theater news, happy anniversary to Aladdin. The show celebrated 10 years on Broadway officially on March 20th, but they actually had their special celebratory performance back on March 28th. And you guys, the commemorative purple playbill is super cute. Hadestown's 5-year anniversary is coming up pretty soon as well, and they have a pretty cool playbill for that. And I'm sorry if it's lame, you guys, but these anniversary playbills are like my all-time favorite thing to collect. I cannot wait to see what Moulin Rouge does for their anniversary in July. For new things coming to Broadway, the West End production of Romeo and Juliet, starring Tom Holland and Francesca Amawuda Rivers, will reportedly be transferring to Broadway. But we knew this already, right? I mean, it wasn't guaranteed, but I talked about this a while ago on the podcast. Like, it just felt like something that was definitely going to happen. It just made sense. And I hope it doesn't sell out as fast as it did in London because I'm trying to be there. I need to see this on stage. It's going to be so good. And then also Old Friends is coming to Broadway. Next March, Bernadette Peters and Leah Salona will lead a production of Old Friends, the concert featuring Stephen Sondheim's music on Broadway. They initially did Old Friends over in London last year, and I've heard so many great things about it, so I'm super interested in this show as well. That's coming March 2025. As for openings happening on Broadway this week, there's really not too much movement on Broadway this week compared to last week and just looking ahead to some of the upcoming weeks. First, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, I know a bunch of shows opened or had their first previews last week, but I want to just shout out one, and that's Stereophonic. The play had its first preview last Wednesday. It takes you into the recording studio as an up-and-coming rock band is making their album in 1976. You guys, this is just completely right up my alley. So it was already on my list to check out, but apparently at the first preview, they had a standing ovation so long that it continued reportedly for 3 minutes after the cast left the stage. And I'm hearing nothing but like complete raves about it, nothing but great things. So I have to shout this out because I think there are some shows that are going to get lost in the sauce surrounding all of the bigger name productions and the productions with like IP tied to it this year. And with all of these other things opening up, I just feel like Stereophonic sounds like one that is super interesting that I want to check out. And yeah, I know it's a limited run, but I still hope it does well. Going back to this week on Broadway though, The Outsiders has its opening night on Thursday, April 11th, and Limpika has its opening night on Sunday, April 14th. Moving on to the television world, let's start with Saturday Night Live. On Saturday, Kristen Wiig, she hosted for the 5th time, and she was joined by so many celebrity cameos. I mean, it was a cameo fest. It was insane. I mean, Paul Rudd, Ryan Gosling, Paula Pell, Matt Damon, Fred Armisen, Jon Hamm, Martin Short, Will Forte, Kaya Gerber, all cameo in person. That's insane. Like, it has to be the most cameos in one episode all season, maybe last season too. That is a lot of people to cameo in one episode. But I mean, it is Kristen Wiig, a veteran SNL cast member, so it made sense, but it was crazy to see. I also just thought it was the most shocking to see Ryan Gosling cameo, considering he's hosting this week, but he actually presented Kristen with the Five Timers robe, and I just love Five Timers sketches so much. I have to say that. They're so fun. Just to quickly shout out my other favorite sketches of the night, the cold open, which was about the Women's March Madness tournament and how the hype is more on the women this year than the men, and I just love that that's a thing, and I also just love when the cold open isn't political. I also found the Jumanji and Pilates sketches to be hilarious if you wanted to check those out. The musical guest of the night was Ray, and I wasn't really familiar with her before, but I totally am now. She's super talented, and I was like, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to her music now. Like, I have to. She's really good. The other big TV thing that I want to talk about, Reese Witherspoon's production company, Hello Sunshine, is currently developing a Legally Blonde spinoff series with the writers of the original Gossip Girl. That is very important to me. I'm very confident that's going to be so good. Now, looking ahead, as I mentioned earlier, Ryan Gosling is hosting Saturday Night Live this week. That's going to be amazing. We already know. And then there's also a Billy Joel Madison Square Garden concert airing on CBS this weekend on Sunday. It's his 100th consecutive show at the Garden. I still need to go to one of those, but I guess I'll tune into this to see if it's worth the dollar that resale sites are charging. Moving on to the music industry, let's talk about the new releases. Obviously, Beyonce's Cowboy Carter came out since we last spoke, but that's partially what today's episode is about, so we're not going to talk about that right now. Viral online, though, are the new releases from Camila Cabello and JoJo Siwa. I have to talk about them, you guys. I have to. I'm sorry. Camila's I Love It has been compared a lot to Charli XCX's songs, and a lot of people online, including Charli, have been joking around for the past few weeks and stirring up stuff. You know what's kind of interesting about both of these songs, actually, is it's taken so long for them to come out. There's all this build up, all of this internet talk for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so the same thing with JoJo Siwa. She's, I guess, trying to shake off her kid image, but she's doing it very drastically and dramatically. So her new song Karma and its associated dance are being memed to death on TikTok. But you guys, as much as people are making fun of these two songs, I have to say, both of these songs, I can tolerate them. They're catchy in the annoying way where it's yeah, they aren't that great, but the joke has become to stream as a joke. And then when you do that, they start to grow on you and they start to get stuck in your head. So that's where I'm at now, basically. I've been listening to these songs. I'm sorry, guys. They're getting stuck in my head, both of these new singles. Some other exciting new releases, though. Khalid is back with a new single called Please Don't Fall in Love with Me. Conan Gray, he released his third studio album, Found Heaven. And Chappell Rowan finally released her single, Good Luck Babe. Looking ahead, this week some of the most anticipated releases include new music from Maggie Rogers and new music from Girl in Red. In music news, Zayn is talking about One Direction again, which is very important news to me, at least. He did a listening party live stream, and on it, he did a lot of interesting things. First he hinted at a tour, which, for those that don't know, Zayn has never done a solo tour. If you've seen solo Zayn live, you'd be incredibly lucky, because he's only done a few shows here and there over, all of these years of his solo career. On this live stream, though, he played his song Sweat, and a fan actually asked if he would sing that song on a potential tour, and Zayn responded saying, yeah, I'd be stupid not to. So does that mean tour, you guys? Does that mean he's going to go on a tour? Or is he just talking? And then on the same stream, he also talked about how he's been listening to One Direction a lot lately, and he even said, we made some good music as a band. We were pretty good. And then he proceeded to sing Right Now, one of their best songs, by the way. Very important moments for every Directioner out there, okay? Also, Billie Eilish just announced a brand new album. It's called Hit Me Hard and Soft. It's her third studio album, and it will be out on May 17th. This is so crazy, you guys. I feel like all of the hitmakers are releasing this spring. Is there something that the entertainment industry just knows about this spring? Because the way that all of these Broadway shows are opening, the way that all of these big music artists are dropping music, it's almost overwhelming, pop culture overload. Is it because the pandemic has finally really started to die down and attendance is going up and everything is going up? Everybody is dropping this spring. It's insane. It's just such a time to be a music super fan, though. I'm so excited. Now, really quickly, let's talk about concerts. First off, Olivia Rodrigo, she's in the middle of her run at Madison Square Garden right now. She sold out 4 nights at the iconic arena, and it feels like, as someone who has a lot of friends in New York, it just seems like my entire timeline has been going to these shows. So I'm having major FOMO because my Guts tour is not until July. But anyways, you guys, at her first night at MSG, Olivia, she brought out Noah Kahan as a special guest, and they sung Stick Season together. I hope everyone in attendance knows how lucky they were for that, because I am so jealous. But it's so silly because if you actually go on social media, Noah Kahan, he went to the show in this silly disguise. He's wearing like a blonde wig so he doesn't get recognized in the crowd. The photos are hilarious. You have to go check them out. Also, a few different concert tours have been announced since we last spoke, including 21 Pilots, who they put on such a fun show. I saw them a few years ago, and it's still one of my favorite concerts that I've ever been to. Then also Orville Peck also announced his tour, the Stampede Tour. He's also really great live, I have to say. I've seen him twice. He also just dropped a new collaboration with Willie Nelson, by the way. I forgot to mention that in like the music releases, but that song's pretty good. Missy Elliott, she just announced her first ever headlining tour, which is wild. That's hard to believe, but her Out of This World Missy Elliott Experience Tour will kick off in July, and she's taking Busta Rhymes, Ciara, and Timbaland along with her. That sounds like so much fun. I think I want to go to that one. The last tour announcement that I'll talk about today is this Take Me Home tour, and I'm not talking about One Direction. Little Big Town is going on tour in celebration of their 25th anniversary, and they're taking Sugarland with them. My excitement for this unfortunately comes with disappointment because they are going to the most random places ever. So many cities are being missed, including mine, including every city near me. I mean, I'm a casual fan of these two groups, but if you were to ask me my favorite country artist, if Taylor Swift doesn't count anymore, it's always going to be Little Big Town. And then Sugarland, I was like 8 years old with them on repeat. Like, they went away for a while. I don't know if y'all know. They just came back a few years ago, but they're so good too. I did see, though, that this tour will be in Nashville the week of my birthday, and I'm like super tempted because I've been trying to vacation in Tennessee for a while. Who says that? I literally just want to visit all of the music spots. I know it's not like known as like a vacation place, but it's pretty big on music, and I wanted to do like a little tour there of a lot of places that I haven't seen since I was like a kid. I've been to Nashville a lot, but I want to visit like some of the museums and go to another show at the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, I used to go to award shows there, but I've never actually seen like a normal concert at the Grand Ole Opry. And then I also want to go to Memphis to Elvis's house, which I also went to as a kid, but I do not remember. I need to see Graceland again. And then I want to go to Pigeon Forge for Dollywood. So, hello, birthday road trip across Tennessee. I think it's coming together because then I can see Little Big Town and Sugarland. Like, guys, should I do it? Is it going to be cold in December down there? I think I actually did have a birthday in Tennessee one year, and I remember it being cold, but how cold? I do not remember. But anyways, moving on, the wildcard section. First, let's talk about this eclipse that took place today. I'm recording this on Monday night, so yesterday, if you're listening to it the day that this came out. I hope you all had fun. I watched it on TV. I was not in the path of totality, and I never picked up the glasses, so I just didn't watch the eclipse because I didn't want to, like, burn my eyes. But there was this warning going around, you guys, about the day after the eclipse, which would be the day that this episode releases. And I don't know if y'all have heard, but people are saying to be on the lookout for strange alien plants. I'm sorry, you guys. That's a little shop of horrors joke for you all. If you don't get it, fix that. Let's talk about March Madness. By the time this episode airs, the men's tournament will be over, but as I'm recording this, the game hasn't happened yet. It's actually probably about to start. It's 9 o'clock here, and it starts at 9, I think. But whatever, it hasn't happened yet. I'm telling you guys, I'm recording this before the game starts, so I can just go ahead and predict to you guys that UConn will win the championship. But if I'm loud and wrong right now, whatever. But I know UConn is good because I saw them play when they came here to DC against my school, Georgetown, and we got beat. So I predict UConn, okay? UConn is the winner right now as you're listening. UConn won. Yay. Anyways, the women's tournament has ended, and my bracket was wrong there because I predicted that LSU would win, and it ended up being South Carolina versus Iowa in the end, with South Carolina taking home the championship. But congratulations to them. Moving on, let's talk about this Hulu and Disney Plus collaboration. Let me just say this. I do not like it. And I'm talking about the new app setup, by the way, for those that don't know. I'm not even sure if it affects everyone, like if you don't have Disney Plus and Hulu. I'm pretty sure it doesn't, but basically they integrated Hulu into the Disney Plus app, and that just sucks. I mean, I don't need American Horror Story next to my Wizards of Waverly Place, or Poor Things next to Lilo and Stitch. Like, I have every streaming service under the sun. Like, I'm subscribed to them all, and I know where everything is, and they have their own vibes, and this is not the vibe. Like, it does not feel right. But whatever, it's too late now. I do have to say I appreciate the little photo shoots that they're doing with Hulu people posing up with Disney people. Like, I saw a picture of Tom Hiddleston, Logan Lerman, and Jeremy Allen White, and I was like, okay, they're doing a little something here. And I also like the commercials. There's one where they mash up How I Met Your Mother and Daredevil, and it catches my attention immediately every single time. I'm like, what is that? And then I'm like, oh, Disney Hulu. It's so good, though. But what they're doing, boo, no, it's not. But I can play now, and then in a year, it'll be like, whatever. Like, it won't even be a big deal in a year. So, we're here now, Hulu and Disney Plus together in one app. Let me know what y'all think about that, though. Last thing really quickly, in the theme park world, Disney keeps teasing stuff, including apparently this new land behind Big Thunder Mountain. I don't know. We'll see about that. But what we have seen for sure are these new animatronics for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. They look so good. It's almost freaky. They're so smooth. Like, it's really real. If you've seen them, like, it looks so real. And then the animatronic for Louie the alligator is just so cute. Like, I cannot wait to ride this. We also got a ton of new info about the How to Train Your Dragon land, the Isle of Berk, over at Universal Studios Orlando's Epic Universe, and that looks so good. I am literally dreaming for the day where I can ride that Hiccups Wing Gliders roller coaster. It just looks like a ton of fun. Like, summer 2025, I'm gonna be outside. I'll see y'all down there. Now, moving on to what I've been up to. I've had a pretty busy weekend. First, on Friday night, I actually returned to my high school. For those that don't know, I was a theater kid in high school. I was actually in my school's drama productions for all 4 years. So every year I try to return to support their annual spring musical. And this year they did this original production called The Magic Boombox, a hip-hop and go-go evolution. And you guys, it was a lot of fun. I'll post some videos up from it later this week. But I just really loved how it kind of picked fun at how my generation doesn't know a lot of older music, despite music today a lot of the time sampling or remixing music from the past. The show really just takes audiences on a journey through the history of hip-hop, and also just being so close to DC, it included some go-go numbers as well. The performance that I went to, it also had some pretty special guests, including Sugar Bear from Experience Unlimited, which was a pretty big go-go group based in Washington, DC back in the day. The whole show, though, was just super exciting, high energy, with great choreo. It was a lot of fun, and I had such a great time getting to support my old high school drama club, the Jaguar Players. I also spent my weekend at the 12th annual Annapolis Film Festival, which was super fun, but the highlight had to be checking out the closing ceremony film, The Idea of You. You guys know I've talked about this movie a lot on this podcast, and I finally got to see it a whole month early. I have so many thoughts. It is my intention to actually do a full episode a bit closer to this movie's release, talking about this movie from kind of like a bird's eye view of the film industry as a whole, with this whole increasing trend as it relates to movies that are based on real people and just what's going on there. And I mean fan fiction, not like biopics, or I should say fan fiction adjacent, because The Idea of You wasn't actually a fan fiction. So if I decide to go through with that episode, I will give additional thoughts then. But just to share a few quick thoughts right now. Well, first, a refresher. For those that aren't familiar, The Idea of You, it follows a 40-year-old single mother played by Anne Hathaway who takes her daughter and her friends to Coachella to see this boy band called August Moon. But what ends up happening is the mother, she ends up falling in love with the 24-year-old lead singer of that boy band, Hayes Campbell, who's played by Nicholas Galitzine. I'm not going to get too detailed for the sake of not spoiling you all, but I really did love the movie, and I think if you have ever been in the music fan space, especially like as a fan of boy bands, or you're just familiar with that culture, you're just gonna get it. Like, this is a movie for you. It's so silly, but it's just like, if August Moon was real, I know I would have been obsessed with them. It's just also well done. The music videos, they felt like ones that I've seen before. There's this scene towards the beginning of the movie where they're at this signing meet and greet event with August Moon at Coachella, and it just felt so real. Like,
I've been to events and I've been in rooms where it went exactly like that. It's just so on the nose. It's so crazy. And then honestly, I think it does kind of suck that this movie is going straight to streaming. I really do think it was so much fun seeing it in a theater, partially because of those audience reactions, but also because those concert scenes are so good. Like, I don't know if I was just sitting close to the speaker, but the music was blasting. It honestly felt like I was at the concert myself. I was jamming along. The songs, they're so catchy. Like, I need an August Moon album on streaming right now. I know they released Dance Before We Walk, but I was waiting for that song to play like half the movie because I was like, that's the one song that I know from TikTok and everything. But I need a full album because all the songs that they played were so good. I just don't think this movie would have hit the same though if it was on streaming at home. It's just so fun. Like, if you have an opportunity to see it in the theater, definitely take it. Now, historically, y'all have heard me talk about how I prefer my romance movies to be comedy over drama. This movie is definitely more of a drama movie, but it does have some comedy elements. Definitely got a few laughs out of me. The chemistry between the two leads are also so good. I was locked on the screen, engaged the entire time, very much gagged with every twist and turn. And I loved it because I never really knew what was going to happen next, because they actually don't always fall into a trope that you think it will. Like, there were so many times where I just wanted to yell like, what, at the screen. It also just does a really great job at exploring the negative aspects of fame, how celebrities are treated by paparazzi, how celebrity girlfriends are always torn apart in the media or attacked by fangirls. And I mean, it really gets into it. And because it doesn't just have this whimsical fan fiction nature and also gets into that negative aspect of things, it creates this balance that makes it feel like a realistic scenario. I really loved a lot of the choices made in this movie and with its plot. I'm not familiar with the original book though, so I can't really get into what's the same and what's different there. The last thing though I'll mention though with this movie for now is that beyond being British, having tattoos, and a bit of charm, there's actually really not that much Harry Styles in there, I'd say. I know there's a lot of comparisons happening right now, and again, this movie is not an adaptation of a Harry Styles fan fiction like people keep saying online. So while they likely took inspiration, and they did take One Direction songwriters for this movie, and like I know Nicholas Galitzine has already said in interviews that he watched Harry Styles to prepare for his role in this movie, they really aren't that alike. For one, August Moon can dance. They do choreo at their concerts, and One Direction never did that. But if I did do that episode that I was talking about earlier, later this season, just to talk about the comparisons to fan fiction and such, because even if this movie doesn't come from a One Direction one, and even if Hayes Campbell isn't that similar to Harry, there's no denial that it definitely pulls from fan fiction tropes. I mean, Anne Hathaway's character Celine, she literally almost reads a book at Coachella, and she just plays this whole character of like, not really interested, only here because of my daughter, very much giving, I'm not like other girls, my friend dragged me here, I don't know you, I don't care who you are. And then they meet before, which is, they have a really funny meet cute actually, but later on he spots her out in the crowd and he literally dedicates a song to her. Like, that's so fan fiction. I've read that before. I honestly have read that before. Those are my thoughts for now, though. In general, I really loved this movie. The Idea of You will be streaming for everyone on Amazon Prime on May 2nd. Go get mooned and let me know what you think. Whew, okay, that's all for this week's pop recap. I know that was a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed learning all of the pop culture news from the past 2 weeks. But now it's time to get into the topic for today. On March 29th, Beyoncé released her 8th studio album, Cowboy Carter. And if you're anything like me, you've had this album on repeat ever since. It's so good, but with its country influences, a lot of people have been discussing the industry's acceptance of Beyoncé into the country music space. And I mean, Beyoncé, she's not new to country music. She actually performed with the country music duo Sugarland, who I was talking about a little bit earlier, all the way back in 2007 at the American Music Awards. And then in 2016, she performed her first real country song, Daddy Lessons, at the Country Music Association Awards. But this performance, it came with criticism. It came with that lack of acceptance for Beyoncé and the country music space. Back then, the CMAs even deleted everything on social media as a result of the backlash relating to her performance. Like, it got that bad. While Black musicians have been at the root of country music since its inception, their acceptance has never fully occurred. When word got out that Beyoncé's upcoming album that she teased on the night of the Super Bowl, a classic night for American culture, when she teased that album would be a country one, a lot of people were not cool with that. And I remember it even got like some drama getting Texas Hold'em on the radio, just a lot. Despite all this, Beyoncé proudly hopped back into country music, highlighting Black voices who are also in the country music space. In her Instagram post announcement for the album, she talks about how she worked on Cowboy Carter for over 5 years, that it was born out of an experience that she had years ago where she felt like she wasn't welcomed, which many have assumed is in reference directly to that CMA's moment. She also talks about how she did a deeper dive into the history of country music and studied our rich musical archive. The album truly is so well done and a celebration of the musical achievements of the Black country music artists that have come before her, and it really just inspired me to learn more about the Black history of country music as well. So today we'll be taking a look at the history of Black artists in the country music scene, and I'll be doing it by highlighting some of the key players over the years, all the way up to Beyoncé with Cowboy Carter. Today we're starting our journey with DeFord Bailey. Born in Smith County, Tennessee in 1899, DeFord Bailey had already learned to play the harmonica by the age of 3. He had been born into a musical family, one known for what he called Black hillbilly music. He told researcher David Morton that his family didn't give him a rattler, they gave him a harp. And he loved to imitate all of the different sounds that he would hear. For example, his song Pan American Blues was influenced by the sound of passing trains from his childhood. Bailey was one of the very first performers of the Nashville radio station WSM Grand Ole Opry Radio's broadcast, and there he became known as the Harmonica Wizard. A fun fact, which I had no clue about, is actually that the Grand Ole Opry name was inspired by DeFord Bailey. The radio broadcast was initially known as the WSM Barn Dance, but as NBC's classical music broadcast Music Appreciation Hour was ending and the Barn Dance was set to begin, announcer George Hayes said, "For the past hour, we've been listening to music largely from Grand Opera, but from now on, we will present the Grand Ole Opry." When he said this, he was talking about DeFord Bailey, who was getting ready to perform. While Bailey's harmonica and blues music was heavily influential during his time, he faced struggles in his career being a Black man, especially while on tour with restaurants and hotels refusing him service. Unfortunately, due to a licensing issue, Bailey was fired from WSM in 1941. He decided to retire, but every once in a while he did appear at the Grand Ole Opry to perform. Bailey passed away in 1982, but he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2005, where he was described as country music's first African-American star. Now, many artists over the years have dabbled in other genres, but there's one that did so and made history. In 1962, Ray Charles released modern sounds in country and western music. Now, Ray Charles, he's someone who really dabbled in a lot of different soulful sounds, from jazz and blues to rock and roll. But with modern sounds in country and western music, Charles took a ton of country songs, covered them, and made them his own, blending them with the jazzy pop sound reminiscent of what he was known for. Charles exercised complete artistic control in the production process of this album, which actually at this time was extremely rare for African-American artists to do. When it was announced that Ray Charles was working on a country album, a lot of people actually doubted him and were negative towards his choice. But modern sounds in country and western music, it ended up being one of Ray Charles' most successful albums. For one, at the time, it not only became one of the best-selling albums of an African-American musician, but it was also one of the best-selling country albums, with 500,000 copies sold in its first 3 months. The lead single, a cover of Don Gibson's I Can't Stop Loving You, was also certified gold. Modern sounds in country and western music has been described by many as a project that introduced country music to new audiences and broke barriers for Black country music. The album was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999, and Ray Charles was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2021. Another early major trailblazer in country music was Charley Pride, who has been described to be country music's first Black superstar. Pride began singing country music at the age of 5, as his father was a huge fan of Grand Ole Opry. So he grew up listening to a variety of country artists. He bought his very first guitar at the age of 14, but he was actually on track to launch a career in baseball. In 1962, however, Pride was discovered while performing in Montana, and by 1965, he was signed to RCA Records. RCA, however, initially kept it a secret that Charley Pride was a Black musician, avoiding to show him on the cover of his singles. Pride's third single, Just Between You and Me, ended up being a hit, and within a year, he was Grammy nominated and playing to crowds of upwards of 10,000 people. Pride's career absolutely exploded despite his race, becoming the first black musician in over 25 years to play the Grand Ole Opry. Pride had 8 #1 hits during the 3-year period between 1969 and 1971, with his biggest single, Kiss an Angel Good Morning, selling over 1 million copies in 1971. All in all, Pride had 29 #1 hits, and he was one of RCA's top-selling artists for decades. He received 4 Grammys, including the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2017, and 4 Country Music Association Awards, including Entertainer of the Year in 1971 and the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. Charley Pride was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2000. Now, while many early black country artists have since gotten their flowers and been recognized with high honors, some aren't as well known anymore. In 1969, musician Linda Martell released Color Me Country. Initially an R&B singer, she tried out singing country after being asked to by a crowd she was performing to at a South Carolina Air Force base. Things moved very quickly for Martell, with the Color Me Country album being recorded in 12 hours. In a Rolling Stone interview, Martell ties her love for country music to the fact that it tells a story. She said, "When you choose a song and you can feel it, that's what made me feel great about what I was singing. I did a lot of country songs and I loved every one of them because they just tell a story." I listened to Color Me Country, you guys, and it's really good. I cannot believe I never heard this before. The same year that the album was released, Martell actually became the first black woman to ever perform at the Opry. Like most black country musicians, Martell faced racism as she tried to grow her career. In the Rolling Stone interview, she talked about how many fans would tell her that she didn't sound black when she sang, and one promoter in Texas even canceled her performance when she arrived and saw that she was a black woman. She also talked about how she had hecklers when playing to all-white audiences, to the point where she had to be careful in selecting which cities she toured in. Unfortunately, Color Me Country ended up being Martell's one and only country project. In 1968, her label saw success with new musician Jenny C. Riley, and Martell felt that her career was not being given the full attention it deserved. She decided to leave the label for another, but she says that her original label blackballed her, completely ruining her reputation. Since then, not much had taken off from Martell's career, but if her name actually sounds familiar, which it should if you listen to Cowboy Carter, it's because she actually has 2 spoken word appearances on the Beyoncé album, track Spaghetti and named after her, The Linda Martell Show. Over the years, we've seen more and more black musicians break into the country music scene, including the Grammy Award-winning band The Carolina Chocolate Drops. Darius Rucker, whose debut solo single, Don't Think I Don't Think About It, made him the first solo African-American artist to chart a #1 country hit ever since Charley Pride's Night Games in 1983. I listened to a lot of Darius Rucker growing up. He's definitely one of my favorite modern country artists. We also now have artists like the Warren Treaty, Kane Brown, just so many really great country artists. While some of our early trailblazers paved the way, there's still a lot of work to be done for black musicians in the country music space. Mickey Guyton, who is making history herself, has spoken out pretty regularly about her experiences with racial discrimination. Guyton had actually signed with Universal Music Group back in 2011, but when she did, she was actually the only black woman under contract with a major country music label. In 2020, Guyton released the single Black Like Me, which, with lyrics like, "If you think we live in the land of the free, you should try to be black like me," the song expressed her feelings about her experience being a black woman in country music. The song was nominated for Best Country Solo Performance at the 2021 Grammy Awards, making Guyton the first black female artist to be nominated in the category. She was also the first black woman to perform at the Academy of Country Music Awards in 2020 and became the first to co-host that same award show the following year. I cannot believe that as late in the 2020s as we are still seeing these firsts like this for black women in the space. In 2018, Lil Nas X released his country trap single, Old Town Road, and received a ton of pushback for it. While in some ways I agree with the sentiment that it's not true country music, it does really feel like a meme song in terms of the lyrics. The way that people criticized him, it just kind of in some ways felt like a lot of like racism and that continuous lack of the country music industry being willing to accept black musicians in that space, especially considering that the track broke records in a way that had never been done before. Old Town Road won multiple Grammys, topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 19 consecutive weeks, and it's just undeniably catchy. Now in 2024, the announcements of Beyoncé releasing country music were met with hate and an initial delay in her music being added into rotation on country music stations. But beyond this, the Cowboy Carter album has seen huge amounts of success already, receiving universal acclaim from critics. Nevertheless, Beyoncé has said that Cowboy Carter is not a country album. It's a Beyoncé album. While she took influences from the genre, she made it mash up well with her already known sound. And I think that's something that's truly special and something that is seen historically with these Black artists who have performed in country music. I mean, many of them, they took things like R&B or blues and they combined it with country, making their own unique thing that sounds truly special. And it carves their own space out in a genre that isn't always the most accepting. Now, I listed off some of the more modern day Black stars of country music, but I left a few out because I wanted to talk about them in the context of Cowboy Carter. You see, the album is a celebration of the country music genre, and throughout it, we get some really great appearances from a variety of different music artists, from Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton to Miley Cyrus and Post Malone. But Beyoncé, she also shines a light on other Black country artists doing their thing. One of my personal favorites, Tanner Adell, whose song Buckle Bunny is just so good, by the way. She's featured on Blackbird, and I love that for her because she's super talented, and she also shot her shot, and she made it. When Beyoncé dropped the first 2 country singles back in February, Tanner Adell, she had actually posted on Twitter, "As one of the only girls in the country music scene, I hope Beyoncé decides to sprinkle me with a dash of her magic for a collab." And look at her now, she's on the album. And then you have Shaboozey, who effortlessly combines hip-hop and Afrobeat sounds with country. You can hear him on the tracks Spaghetti and Sweet Honey Buckin'. Brittany Spencer from Baltimore, Maryland, woo! And Tierra Kennedy of Birmingham, Alabama. They're both featured on Blackbird as well. Then you have Willie Jones, who got his start on X Factor and is known for an R&B country song, is featured on Just for Fun. And banjo player Raina Roberts sings backup on Blackbird and Tyrant. Also, Linda Martell, as we talked about earlier, she's on Spaghetti and The Linda Martell Show. And on Spaghetti, she actually says, "Genres are a funny little concept," which is just so in tune with the idea that Beyoncé is putting forth here about being able to explore as a musician. I really do love that Beyoncé brought all of these artists to be on her album because it just also platformed them in the industry. I feel like I hadn't heard of a lot of these artists. I was familiar with Tanner Adell, but just being able to be introduced to all of these different music artists was really special for me, and I think for everyone, because I saw a report that the album actually boosted streams for many of the Black country acts featured on the album on Spotify. And I think that's one of the main points that Beyoncé was trying to do with this album, is platform and highlight other voices in the space. I also just think it's super interesting, all of the elements and the meaning behind a lot of these songs. I mean, we could take a whole episode to just decode and break down everything, but just one example, Blackbird, that's a cover of the Beatles song, for those that don't know, but the Beatles song is actually about desegregation in American schools and the Little Rock Nine, who were the first group of Black students to desegregate in Arkansas high school back in 1957. And I mean, I don't know Beyoncé's full intentions behind the track, but I actually see it as her not only including a song that just references Black history in general on the album, but because she features 4 other Black women in country music on the track, Tanner Adell, Brittany Spencer, Tierra Kennedy, and Raina Roberts, it kind of just aligns with that whole original messaging of the song, where these women, they've stepped into a space where they might not have been fully welcomed to pursue their passions for music despite what people might say. I truly think we'll be talking about Cowboy Carter for a while. It's an album that not only transcends genres, but it's so much fun. It's just so well done. I mean, the way that it's stylized to be like a radio broadcast is so unique and just a great choice. And then with the cohesiveness and how it starts and ends the same with all of that messaging with American Requiem. And I wanted to end with sharing my current top 5 songs, I should say, in no particular order. First, I'd say 16 Carriages, because that's been my favorite since the beginning, honestly. It's such a good song to yell to in the shower. Also, Two Most Wanted with Miley Cyrus. I think that's just the perfect collaboration. And then also Beyonce's cover of Jolene. Amazing. Rounding out my top 5 is pretty hard, but I have to say Bodyguard is definitely on there. It just feels like the month of July. It just feels very summer, you know what I mean? And then, let's do 6, because Blackbird and Tyrant both deserve spots in my top songs. There, those are my faves. Let me know what your favorites off of Cowboy Carter are on social media, and let me know like just your thoughts on the album as a whole and like all of the messaging and the collaborations. And I hope you learned something new in this episode, because I definitely did while making it. And definitely let me know if there's like another country artist that maybe I left out or that I didn't know about, because I want to keep learning. It's all really interesting, this whole history of it. So yeah, let me know.
That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, tell a friend and make sure you let me know by leaving a review and following the podcast. As a reminder, at FanFave, it's all about the love for entertainment and the joy of being a fan. FanFave is active with even more content on social media, so make sure you don't miss anything. It's at FanFave Media everywhere. So connect with me because I want to hear from you, my fellow fans of pop culture. I'll see you next Tuesday when we'll dive into another aspect of pop culture. Thanks for listening and see you soon.